On August 11th in 1919, Friedrich Ebert, a member of the Social Democratic Party and the provisional president of the German Reichstag, signs a new constitution known as the Weimar Constitution into law, officially creating the first parliamentary democracy in Germany. Even before Germany acknowledged its defeat at the hands of the Allied powers on the battlefields of the First World War, discontent and disorder ruled the home front. As the exhausted and hunger-plagued German people expressed their frustration and anger with large-scale strikes among factory workers and mutinies within the armed forces. Beginning in 1916, Germany had basically been operating under a military dictatorship. The Supreme Army Command, led by Paul von Hindenburg and Erich Ludendorff. In late October 1918, however, with defeat looming on the horizon, Hindenburg pushed Kaiser Wilhelm II and the German government to form a civil government in order to negotiate an armistice with the Allies. The Kaiser and Reichstag subsequently amended the latter organization's constitution of 1871, effectively creating a parliamentary democracy in which the Chancellor of Germany, Prince Max von Baden, was responsible not to Wilhelm, but to the Reichstag. This was not enough, however, to satisfy the far leftist forces within Germany, who capitalized on the chaos of the last days of a losing war effort to lead a general workers' strike that November 7th and called for the establishment of a socialist republic along the lines of the Bolshevik government in Russia. Hoping to pacify the radical socialists, von Baden transferred his powers to Ebert, the leader of Germany's Social Democratic Party, on November 9th. Over the next 6 months, the Reichstag, led by SPD, worked to write a new constitution that would solidify Germany's status as a parliamentary democracy. Meanwhile, many within Germany blamed the government for what they saw as the humiliating terms imposed on the country by the victorious Allies in the Treaty of Versailles, particularly the treaty's demand for German war reparations, justified by a clause that placed blame for the war squarely on the shoulders of Germany. Under vicious attack from both the militarist right and the radical socialist left, and identified by both sides with the shame of Versailles, the Weimar government and its constitution, signed into law on August 11, 1919, seemed to have a dim chance of survival. In this atmosphere of confrontation and frustration, exacerbated by poor economic conditions, right-wing elements began to take an ever more pervasive hold over the Reichstag. This process, intensified by the worldwide depression that began in 1929, would culminate in the rise of power of Adolf Hitler, who exploited the weakness of the Weimar system to lay the foundation for himself and his National Socialist German Workers, or Nazi, Party to dissolve the parliamentary government and take absolute control over Germany. On August 11th in 1965, in the predominantly black Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, racial tension reaches a breaking point after two white policemen scuffle with a black motorist suspected of drunk driving. A crowd of spectators gathered near the corner of Avalon Boulevard and 116th Street to watch the arrest and soon grew angry by what they believed to be yet another incident of racially motivated abuse by the police who were sworn to protect them. An uprising soon began, spurred on by residents of Watts who were embittered after years of economic and political isolation. The protesters eventually ranged over a 50 square mile area of South Central Los Angeles, looting stores and torching buildings as snipers fired at police and firefighters. Finally, with the assistance of thousands of National Guardsmen, the violence was quelled on August 16th. Within the 5 days of rigorous protests, 34 people continued their eternity. 1,032 people were injured. There were 4,000 arrests made, and $40 million worth of property was destroyed.
Lego. Lego. Lego.
The Watts Rebellion, also known as the Watts Riots or Watts Uprising, foreshadowed many rebellions to occur in ensuing years, including the 1967 Detroit riots and Newark riots engendered by the same cause, a struggle for equality. It was in the year 1973 on August 11th that hip-hop was born at a birthday party in the Bronx. Like any style of music, hip-hop has roots in other forms, and its evolution was shaped by many different artists. But there's a case to be made that it came to life precisely on August 11th in 1973 at a birthday party in the recreation room of an apartment building in the West Bronx in New York City. The location of that birthplace was 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, and the man who presided over that historic party was the birthday girl's brother, Clive Campbell, better known to history as DJ Kool Herc, founding father of hip-hop. Born and raised to the age of 10 in Kingston, Jamaica, DJ Kool Herc began spinning records at parties and between sets his father's band played while he was a teenager in the Bronx in the early 1970s. Herc often emulated the style of Jamaican selectors, DJs, by toasting, i.e. talking, over the records he spun. But his historical significance has nothing to do with rapping. Kool Herc's contribution to hip-hop was even more fundamental. DJ Kool Herc's signature innovation came from observing how the crowds would react to different parts of whatever record he happened to be playing. Quote, "I was noticing people used to wait for particular parts of the record to dance, maybe to do their specialty move," unquote. Those moments tended to occur at the drum breaks, the moments in a record when the vocals and other instruments would drop out completely for a measure or two of pure rhythm. What Kool Herc decided to do was to use the two turntables in a typical DJ setup, not as a way to make a smooth transition between two records, but as a way to switch back and forth repeatedly between two copies of the same record, extending the short drum break that the crowd most wanted to hear. He called his trick the merry-go-round. Today, it is known as the breakbeat. By the summer of 1973, DJ Kool Herc had been using and refining his breakbeat style for the better part of a year. His sister's party on August 11th, however, put him before his biggest crowd ever with the most powerful sound system he'd ever worked. It was the success of that party that would begin a grassroots musical revolution, fully 6 years before the term hip-hop even entered the popular vocabulary. The historic information divulged and documented on this audio file can be verified on History.com.